the Vichy government had decreed that stateless people or people without a French passport could not be employed. Once the people ran out of things to sell, my father sold his bicycle and he sold a few other things. Then our one alternative would be to go into a refugee camp, which were really quite terrible places. So my parents were very anxious to have at least the children leave.
I remember myself very well. When the war broke out, we were enemy aliens, not because we were Jewish, but because we had an Austrian passport. And my father went from consulate to consulate trying to get visas to go anywhere that was plausible.
People from various backgrounds struggled for a place on these lists. It was like triage in an emergency room. But in this case, the whole world was the emergency room, and there weren't enough beds for all the patients who needed admission.
In 1939 and in 1940, most countries had their doors shut to Jews. There was a stiff quota system operating, especially in the United States.
Americans did not like Jews very much. If you look at opinion polls in the early 1940s, 48% of, this is a poll of 1944, 48% of Americans expressed anti-Jewish views. And of course, the government reflected, to an extent, the views of their constituencies.
My parents struggled not only against Nazi and Vichy officials, but against anti-Semitism that was rampant in our own State Department. The fact that my parents are only the second and third Americans named as righteous speaks volumes to the isolation and challenges of their roles as bearers of moral alarm.
Going from consulate to consulate, that's where my father met Martha Shah, who saved my life.
Look how happy she looked. That's Rosemary.
This is Rosemary as a girl.
Yeah, that was probably taken before the trip to America. So this is the manifest of all the children of who came on the trip.
My father met Irene Okuniev. She was the secretary to Mrs. Sharp. And as we are getting together a group of children to go to America. And my father said, oh, if you could just include my girls in that. And she said, well, the group is full. And as it turned out, at the last minute, 2 boys who were going to go with the group did not show up. And so my sister and I were included in the group.
I must have not wanted to go to America. So I don't think I was told very much ahead of time.
I don't remember any goodbyes with our parents or any kind of parting scene.
Heartbreaking as it was for the parents, they wanted to rescue their children first and foremost, so they handed them over to strangers.
Can you imagine the parents seeing their children leaving, not knowing, maybe hoping for a better future, but not knowing if they would ever see them? It was not a very nice picture to watch.
It seemed to be an endless voyage, and I was terribly seasick.
What they did was make the ballroom into a dormitory. They just put mattresses on the floor. We all were wearing beige berets. They could count how many beige berets there would be, and that way they did keep track of us. we arrived in New York, and some Red Cross ladies had a table with cocoa there, and that was really very welcome. It made us feel that America must be a great place.
And slowly, slowly we were robbed of the things which were precious, till the last stroke came to be prepared for the deportation. And here, my drawing, the last cup of tea and the last piece of bread before they take us to the ghetto Theresienstadt, waiting to be deported. In Auschwitz, I didn't have anymore, I wasn't anymore a human being, I was only a number, a tattooed number, and was called only by this number, 168, 194. We were transported to the east, about 80, 90 people in a cattle wagon, little babies, children, old people, sick people, some supply of water and few loaves of bread. We were sealed. It was like a life in a grave. What happened in such a wagon, you couldn't, of course, you couldn't lay down, you couldn't stay up, you couldn't sit, and I leave it to imagination. My mother and sister were sent off from Auschwitz for work in Germany. I was left with my father and came to a different camp with a group of children, about 90. And we knew exactly the date when the rest of the camp was liquidated, meaning mothers, children, babies, and old people. And between them was, of course, my father. And from that moment, nobody could anymore cry. After the war, I drew all these memoirs and I kept them. This was one of the earliest drawings, when I knew exactly the day when my father went to the gas chamber. Here is the crematorium where we walked, and that of my father. When I met Martha after the war, she took many, many of these drawings with her to America, and she gave many lectures all over America with the help of my drawings. And many of them are now in Yad Vashem.
Yehuda, thank you.
It's a privilege.
Thank you for coming.
No, I thank you. There are people you meet in your life, and they change your way of life. I call them angels.
They were modest and ordinary people. They responded to the suffering and needs around them, as they would have expected everyone to do in a similar situation. They never viewed what they did as extraordinary.
These are real, courageous heroes of the spirit. These are stories that took place. It shows that one can face up to tyrannical regimes like the Nazis, and one can preserve one's humanity as these people did, as the Sharps did, and as the others on our list did.